Good day, students. Welcome to another episode on Schoolonair. I'll be your instructor for basic science. Today, we are going to be learning about magnetism. So, at the end of this chapter, you should be able to, number one, explain what magnetism is. Number two, you should be able to state the magnetic poles. Number three, explain magnetic poles and field. Number four, explain the two laws of magnetism. Number five, you should be able to explain how to care for magnets. So let's go into the video. So magnets are substances that have the ability to attract ions and steel. So they have the ability to attract metals, in short. Magnets were first discovered more than 2,000 years ago in China. They were called lodestones. So they used to refer them to lodestone instead of magnet that we call them today. So in China, about 2,000 years ago, they discovered the first magnet. So they called them lodestone and were found to be oxide of iron. That is, oxygen was added to iron. So the oxide of iron were referred to as lodestone. The phenomenon of magnet to attract iron and steel is called magnetism. So the ability of magnet to attract metals, e.g. iron and steel, is called magnetism. So in this topic, you will learn about the laws of magnetism, magnetic poles, magnetic field, and how to take care of our magnets. So let's go to the laws of magnetism. Magnets have two poles. So there are two poles on the magnet, the north-seeking pole and the south-seeking pole. So we can also call it the north pole and the south pole. So the north-seeking pole and the south pole. You can detect the two poles of a magnet by tying one end of a rope to the magnet. So when you tie a end of a rope to a magnet and holding the other end to the rope, so you tie the rope and hold the magnet to the other end of the rope. The north-seeking pole is the end of the magnet pointing to the geographical north, while the south-seeking pole is the end of the magnet pointing to the geographical south. That is, the south pole will point to the south, and we understand that the south is always down, and the north-seeking pole will point to the north, and we understand that the north is upward. So there are two poles, and there are two poles, that is the north-seeking pole and the south-seeking pole. So the north-seeking pole points to the geographical north, while the south-seeking pole points to the geographical south. So let's go to the two laws of magnetism. The first law of magnetism, this states that like poles repel. So the first law states that like poles repel, and we understand that there are two poles. So if you have two magnets of the same pole pointing to each other, they will repel. So what do you mean by this? This implies that when the north-seeking pole of one magnet is brought closer to the north-seeking pole of another magnet, they will repel each other. What do you mean by this? If, for example, let's say this is a north-seeking pole. Using my hand, for example, this is a north-seeking pole, and another hand is another magnet. So if you bring them together, you will cause a repulsion, and this repulsion is due to the first law of magnetism. So the case is also true for the two south-seeking poles that are brought together. So if we bring two magnets of the same pole to each other, they will repel. That is, if you bring the north pole, for example, and the north pole to each other, they will repel each other. That is, they will be moving away from each other. Whereas it will also work for the south pole. If you bring the south pole and another south pole together, they will also repel each other. That is, they will move away from each other. That means unlike like poles will repel. So in magnets, since there are two poles, the north-seeking pole and the south-seeking pole, if two north-seeking poles are brought together, they will repel.